The evening sky was heavy with rain, painting Lagos in shades of gray and gold. Streetlights flickered to life as a sleek black SUV rolled down a narrow street lined with weathered houses. The driver glanced nervously in the rearview mirror. "Sir, are you sure this is the address?" he asked. In the back seat, Richard Adewale, a man in his early 30s with flawless dark brown skin, a clean shave, and sharp eyes that commanded respect, simply nodded. His fitted charcoal suit clung perfectly to his athletic frame, and a gold watch glimmered faintly on his wrist. "Yes," he said coldly. "She told me her mother lives here. I need to see it for myself." He stepped out into the drizzle, holding an umbrella over his head. The air smelled of wet earth and cooking smoke. It was a world far from the luxury estates and marble offices he knew, a world he'd never imagined his fiancée belonged to. As he approached the compound, he noticed the broken gate barely hanging on its hinges. Faint voices came from inside. He walked closer, slowly, cautiously, and what he saw through the open doorway made him stop breathing. There, on the cracked concrete floor, Clara, the woman he planned to marry, knelt barefoot in the mud. Her elegant face was streaked with tears and rain. Her dress, once white, was stained brown from the ground. Her braids clung to her face as she leaned over an elderly woman lying weakly on a mat. The old woman's dark skin was wrinkled and pale, her breathing shallow. Clara held a small bowl of pap in her trembling hands, gently lifting a spoon to her mother's lips. "Please, Mama," she whispered softly. "You need to eat something. I'll find a way to buy the medicine tomorrow. Just stay with me." Richard stood frozen. The woman he thought was raised in comfort was feeding her sick mother with bare, shaking hands, in a house with no electricity, no running water, and barely a roof. A flash of lightning illuminated his face, revealing a storm of emotions, shock, disbelief, and a quiet shame he didn't understand. His phone buzzed. It was his assistant, reminding him of a dinner meeting with international investors. He silenced it without a word. For the first time in years, Richard didn't know what to say, what to think, or what to feel. The world he built on pride and perfection suddenly seemed small, and the woman kneeling in the dirt looked stronger than anyone he had ever met. He took one slow step back, still watching her whisper words of comfort to her dying mother. In that moment, under the cold Lagos rain, Richard realized something profound. He hadn't come to surprise Clara. He had come to truly see her for the first time. The next morning, the sky was still gray, heavy with the residue of last night's storm. The city moved as it always did, loud, restless, unforgiving. But for Richard, time moved differently. The image of Clara feeding her sick mother on the floor of that broken house wouldn't leave his mind. He sat at the long mahogany table in his office, 30 floors above Victoria Island, surrounded by men in crisp suits and women typing away on their laptops. The air smelled of coffee, perfume, and wealth. Yet his heart felt as if it was still trapped in that damp, dimly lit room. His personal assistant, Michael, tall, dark-skinned, and neatly dressed in a navy blue suit, stepped closer with a file. "Sir, the meeting with the new investors starts in 15 minutes. Richard didn't answer. His brown eyes were fixed on the window, watching the raindrops crawl down the glass. "Sir, I'm not going," Richard said flatly. Michael blinked. "Not going? But I said cancel it." Michael hesitated, confused but obeyed. He'd never seen his boss this quiet, this lost. Across town, in that small house, Clara sat beside her mother's bed. She looked exhausted, but her eyes glowed with an inner light, a mix of pain and hope. Her dark brown skin shimmered faintly with sweat, her braids were tied back neatly now, and her pale yellow wrapper was freshly washed. She had spent the night awake, praying and wiping her mother's forehead. "God," she whispered, her voice trembling, "please don't take her yet. I can't lose her too." Her phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. "Clara, it's Richard. I'm sorry. Please don't be angry. I just want to see you again." She stared at the message, unsure what to feel. The man who once boasted of owning half the city had seen her at her lowest, without makeup, without strength, without pride. Would he pity her now? Or had he come to mock her reality? Her mother stirred faintly, whispering her name. Clara, is that the man you love? Clara wiped her tears. Yes, Mama. But I think he saw me yesterday. I don't know if he'll ever look at me the same again. The old woman smiled weakly. If he truly loves you, my child, he will come back, not for the woman he wanted, but for the woman he found. Hours later, Richard's car stopped again near the same compound. This time, he didn't send anyone ahead. He stepped out quietly, dressed in simple clothes, a white shirt, rolled sleeves, and black trousers. No bodyguards, no driver following. Just him. When he entered, Clara turned, startled. You shouldn't be here, she whispered. I should have been here long ago, he replied softly. There was no arrogance in his tone now, no judgment in his eyes. He reached into his pocket, pulled out an envelope, and placed it on the wooden table beside her mother's medicine bottles. For her treatment, he said. Clara shook her head. I can't take this. You can, he said gently. Because it's not charity. It's an apology. Tears welled up in her eyes as he knelt beside her, a billionaire bowing before a woman the world had called poor. For the first time, Clara saw him differently, not as the man of money and status, but as someone trying to unlearn what pride had taught him. Outside, the rain finally stopped, and a single beam of sunlight broke through the clouds, spilling through the window, falling gently on them both, as if heaven itself had paused to witness the beginning of something deeper than love. Days passed. The story of what Richard had done began to ripple quietly through his world, though no one truly understood it. His friends called him distracted. His investors called him reckless. His staff whispered behind his back that their boss was losing his mind. But Richard didn't care. Something had changed inside him, something he couldn't explain. He found himself thinking less about profit margins and more about promises, the kind people made with their hearts, not their contracts. Meanwhile, Clara spent her nights caring for her mother, her days doing odd cleaning jobs around the neighborhood. Her simple brown gown and sandals became her armor. Her smile, even in exhaustion, was her dignity. She hadn't replied to Richard's messages since that day. Not out of anger, but confusion. Why had he come? What did he want? One afternoon, as she scrubbed the corridor of a small hotel, she heard a familiar voice behind her. Calm, deep, and certain. I told you I'd come back. She froze, her brush slipping from her hand. Turning, she saw him again, Richard, but not the man in fine suits or driving convoys. This time, he wore a plain gray shirt, sleeves rolled up, his dark brown skin glistening slightly from the Lagos heat. His eyes, the same eyes that once looked down on everyone, now held something softer. Clara crossed her arms, keeping her tone sharp. Why are you following me? I'm not, he said simply. I'm finding myself, through you. She frowned. Through me? Yes. He smiled faintly. You showed me what real strength looks like, and it's not in glass offices or bank accounts. It's here, he gestured toward the mop in her hand, in those who still stand when life breaks them. She looked away, her throat tightening. You shouldn't say things like that. Why? Because they sound like promises, she whispered. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. Then let it be one. Before she could respond, a hotel supervisor entered the hallway, a tall, round woman with rich dark skin and a sharp tone. Clara, what are you doing standing there talking? We have rooms to finish. Yes, Ma, Clara replied quickly, picking up her bucket. Richard turned to the woman with a calm smile. Excuse me, ma'am. I was just asking about room service. The woman squinted, unimpressed. And who are you? Just a guest, he said, slipping a card from his pocket. Her eyes widened as she read the gold-embossed text, Anderson Group, Executive Board. She stuttered, suddenly polite. Oh, sir. Forgive me, I didn't realize. Richard waved it off. No harm done. Then, glancing at Clara, he added quietly, some lessons are better learned in humility. When he left, Clara stood frozen. The same man who once dismissed her world now walked inside it with grace, not to show power, but to understand pain. That evening she went home to her mother, who looked stronger, smiling faintly. You saw him again, didn't you? Clara nodded. Yes, Mama. But he's different now. I don't know what's happening. Her mother reached out, placing a fragile hand over hers. Maybe God isn't changing him for you. Maybe he's using you to change him. Clara looked down, silent. The city lights flickered outside the window, one for every person struggling to rise above what life had broken. And in one of those lights, Richard stood on his balcony that same night, staring into the darkness, whispering the truth he had been running from. I used to think she was beneath me, but maybe she's the reason I was ever meant to rise. The following week, the tension between Richard's two worlds, the man of power and the man of conscience, finally collided. At the grand ballroom of the prestigious Lagos Meridian Hotel, Richard hosted his company's annual board dinner. The chandeliers shimmered like stars, the air smelled of imported wine, and laughter echoed from every corner. Men in dark suits and women in sparkling gowns filled the tables, celebrating another year of profit. But even in that glittering crowd, Richard couldn't stop seeing Clara's face, the way she bent over her mother, the quiet strength in her eyes. The memory haunted him like a shadow behind every smile. When the dinner began, Richard's fiancée, Vanessa, walked in late, tall, striking, her caramel-brown skin glowing under the lights, wearing a golden gown that demanded attention. As soon as she reached his side, she whispered sharply, "You've been acting strange lately, Richard. Is it another woman?" The question hit him like a slap. "Vanessa, not now." "Oh, but yes now," she hissed. "You think I don't hear things? You were seen visiting Mushin." "Mushin, Richard? What business could a billionaire possibly have in a slum?" Murmurs rippled nearby. Heads turned. But Richard didn't care. His voice was calm, almost too calm. "Sometimes, Vanessa, the poorest streets hold richer souls than these gold rooms." The entire table fell silent. Vanessa's painted smile froze, her pride wounded. "So, that's it then. You've fallen for some roadside girl?" Richard rose slowly from his chair. His dark brown skin glowed under the ballroom lights, his tall frame commanding quiet respect even without a word. "I've fallen for truth," he said finally. "Something you wouldn't recognize if it stared you in the mirror." Guess. Cameras clicked. Board members exchanged uneasy glances. Vanessa's eyes filled with fury. "You're embarrassing me in front of the entire board." "No," he replied. "I'm embarrassing myself for ever thinking love could be bought." The room froze in stunned silence. The billionaire everyone feared was now speaking with humility that no one could have imagined. Before the night ended, Richard quietly left the ballroom. He took off his tuxedo jacket, handed it to the valet, and drove himself home. No chauffeur, no guards, just a man finally tired of pretending. That same night, across the city, Clara sat by her mother's bedside. The rain outside pattered softly against the window. Her mother stirred and whispered, "My daughter, you look worried." Clara forced a smile. "No, Mama. Just tired." "Don't hide your heart," her mother said gently. "If that man truly saw your pain, then maybe he's not the one who hurt you. Maybe he's the one God sent to heal you." Clara didn't answer, but her tears spoke louder than words. Meanwhile, Richard stood at his window, watching the city lights blur through the rain. He finally understood that money, fame, and power had given him everything except peace, and that somehow, a girl who had nothing had found a way to give it to him. In that quiet night, two hearts prayed unknowingly for the same thing: forgiveness and a second chance. The following morning, the city of Lagos woke slowly under a soft drizzle. Cars honked in distant traffic, vendors shouted along the roadside, and in the heart of Victoria Island, the billionaire's mansion stood quiet and cold. Inside the grand living room, the billionaire sat alone on a velvet armchair, still wearing the same clothes from the night before. His dark brown skin looked tired against the gold cushions, and his sharp eyes were clouded by guilt. The news headline on the flat-screen TV repeated the same words over and over: "CEO storms out of gala after public argument." He turned off the TV with a heavy sigh. For the first time in years, the man who could buy anything in the world couldn't buy peace. On the marble floor near his feet lay the small handkerchief he had picked up from the dirt last night, the one his fiancée used to clean her mother's face. He held it gently, his strong hands trembling slightly. He remembered how the old woman smiled through her pain, how his fiancée's eyes glistened with love as she fed her. The sound of slow footsteps broke the silence. His personal assistant, a tall, dark-skinned man in a gray suit, approached quietly. "Sir," he said softly, "the board is waiting for you. You missed this morning's call with the investors." The billionaire didn't look up. "Cancel everything today." The assistant hesitated. "Sir?" "I said cancel everything," he repeated, his voice calm but firm. "I need to find someone." The assistant nodded respectfully and left. The billionaire rose slowly from his seat, adjusted his cufflinks, and walked to the massive window. Raindrops traced paths down the glass, blurring the city skyline beyond. He whispered under his breath, "I judged her too quickly. I forgot what love looks like." Hours later, his convoy of black SUVs pulled through the narrow streets of Ajigunle, a place no one would expect to see a man of his status. Children ran barefoot through puddles, women sold vegetables by the roadside, and the air smelled of rain and wood smoke. The moment he stepped out, all eyes turned to him. A man in a white kaftan and polished shoes didn't belong there. Yet he didn't care. He asked every passerby, showing them a picture of his fiancée's mother. At last, an elderly woman pointed toward a small wooden house with a tin roof at the corner. "They live there," she said. He walked slowly toward it. Inside, he found his fiancée kneeling beside her mother's bed, wiping her forehead with a damp cloth. The old woman looked weaker, but her eyes still carried peace. When the billionaire appeared in the doorway, his fiancée froze. He took a deep breath, his voice soft. "I was wrong." Tears welled in her eyes. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered. "I should have been here long ago," he replied, stepping closer. "You showed me what love really is, something I lost chasing wealth and reputation." The mother stirred weakly and smiled faintly. "You came back," she murmured. He knelt beside her bed, the same man who once stood above empires now lowering himself on the dirt floor. He took the old woman's hand gently. "Please forgive me, ma'am. You raised a woman of strength and grace. I didn't deserve her kindness." The old woman's lips curved into a faint smile. "It's never too late to learn humility," she said softly. "Real love is not ashamed to kneel." Outside, the rain stopped. Sunlight broke through the clouds, shining across the room, lighting the billionaire's face as he bowed his head in silent repentance. The maid from next door peeked through the open door and whispered to the neighbors, "He came back for her." And as the warm rays filled the house, it felt as though the heavens themselves had chosen that moment to forgive him. 2 weeks later, the city of Lagos stood still once more, not for a scandal, not for wealth, but for love reborn in the most unexpected way. Inside a grand hall filled with polished marble floors and fresh white flowers, the billionaire stood on stage in a simple white native outfit, no longer the man of pride and distance, but of calm and humility. His dark brown skin glowed warmly under the soft golden light, and his sharp features looked softer now, peaceful. Before him sat hundreds of guests, business executives, journalists, friends, and community members from both the rich island and the poor mainland. Behind him, a large banner read, "The Grace Initiative, in loving memory of Mama Grace." At the front row sat his fiancée, dressed in a royal blue gown, her black skin radiant, her eyes calm yet emotional. She held her mother's framed portrait close, the woman who had taught her compassion, who fed her with love even in hunger, and who had changed a billionaire's heart without ever leaving her small home. The hall grew quiet as the billionaire stepped up to the microphone. His voice, once filled with power and pride, now trembled with sincerity. "I once believed wealth could buy everything, comfort, respect, even love. But then I met a woman who fed her sick mother from the dirt, with nothing but faith and heart. That day, I saw a truth I had forgotten. Real wealth isn't measured in money. It's measured in love." He turned toward his fiancée, his eyes soft. "I judged you because of what I saw, not who you were. But you taught me the kind of love that humbles kings and heals hearts. For that, I'll spend the rest of my life honoring your mother's memory and protecting yours." Tears welled in her eyes as she stood, walked to the stage, and hugged him tightly. The hall erupted in applause. Even the staff, security guards, cleaners, and secretaries, wiped their eyes discreetly. As the music began to play softly in the background, the billionaire gestured for everyone's attention once more. Today, he continued, I dedicate this foundation to every woman who has ever been unseen, unheard, or underestimated. To every mother who raised children with nothing but faith. And to every heart that still chooses kindness in a cruel world. The audience stood, clapping, some crying. The moment felt divine, a merging of pain, forgiveness, and new beginnings. Outside, the sunlight poured through the glass doors of the hall, painting the sky in gold. Reporters rushed forward for interviews, but the billionaire ignored them, walking hand in hand with his fiancée out of the hall. In the courtyard, a group of schoolchildren, sponsored by the new foundation, sang a soft melody. Their dark skin shimmered under the light, their voices pure and full of joy. He stopped to listen. His fiancée leaned her head on his shoulder. She'd be proud of you, she whispered. No, he said gently, looking toward the sky. She'd be proud of us. Sparkle's moral of the tale. Never look down on someone because of where they are. The hands that seem dirty today may one day clean your heart. True love and humility can heal what pride and power destroy.